All right, so I have here, so my kids go to attend Lancaster or enroll at Lancaster County Christian School, and their colors for their athletics department is orange, navy blue, and white. So I decided to I wanted to make a theme bowl for, to match the school's colors. So that's where these colors come from, in case you're wondering what's up with the crazy colors. So it's a black walnut base. It was a crotch piece. I don't know how well I can get there we go. Some really nice figuring in for the black walnut, the crotch piece. And then I used the designer epoxy, and the colored pieces of epoxy, I just cast those separate and just left them in the cups, let them get hard, and then used a hammer and chisel and spent hours breaking them all to pieces, and then set them on top of the wood piece in a 5-gallon bucket. And I put a piece of plywood on top of it with a weight on and taped it all together to hold everything down to keep it from floating, and then just poured it with clear epoxy. So then I turned it and I cored it twice. I got the 2 cores out of it. This guy was the last one I was finishing. It went for a ride. I had a little chip up on the rim here somewhere, and I had a nasty catch, and half of it went flying across the shop. Actually, it came up, just grazed the front of my face mask on its way across the shop. So, but I wasn't ready to give up on it because it's part of the set, and at this point I have way too much time into it already. So I took a clamp, I clamped the thing on both sides, clamped it and broke it into more pieces, because this is the original break in here. This is the original break, and all these other little lines was me just putting it in a clamp. And the one spot I had it clamped pretty tight, and I'm looking at it. I grabbed the hammer, I'm going, yeah, what the heck? Hit the thing, it goes flying, of course. So, and then I put it all back in a plastic bowl, hot glued the pieces in place, and then poured more epoxy. And that's why all the lines are in it. But I'm very happy with the end results. Finished in 3 coats of Waterlocks, I believe it is. So that's it.
Your
Bottom.
your epoxy chunks look as if they've been tumbled. They don't appear to have sharp edges. They weren't put through like a rock tumbler or something, were they?
No, they do have sharp edges. I still have some. I thought of bringing a handful along. I should have, just to show you. But no, they're really jagged.
Yeah, they look pretty soft in there.
Well, thank you, but no, they're not very soft. So, but that's what I have.
Was that for chip and dip for the soccer team?
I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them yet. I tried to sell them actually at a Christmas marketplace at the school, but they didn't sell. So I might have to donate them to the school or something. I'm not sure.
You got to try next is pouring a whole bowl of chunks and then pouring it. So we have a bowl that's all chunks, no wood.
No. Oh, well, this one is
It's there.
almost all chunks. There's a little bit of wood left.
How thin can you turn that before it starts to get glassy or shattered?
Have you turned thin?
I've turned it down to less than a quarter inch. You had to go slow because of the heat buildup.
Mm-hmm.
Just when I've done some thin epoxy walls, down to about a quarter inch, it'll stay pretty stable. If you start going a little below a quarter inch, it tends the heat build up and it starts to do weird things. So you make a cut, let it cool down, and then make another cut. And more so when you're doing the sanding because of the heat buildup. It really wants to walk all over the place. Unless you're looking for something to be warped and weird looking, then yeah.
I have not turned anything very thin. I like my hefty bowls, or maybe I afraid of thin walls and going through them. So I don't know. We'll say I like my hefty balls. We'll go with that.
Thank you, Henry. Here's Bill Heaps with the bowl full.
Thank you. And some pictures. We'll start off with the pictures. My wife was going to a party and she wanted to have a hostess gift. So she said, why don't you turn a tree? So I took a piece of apple that was laying out underneath the apple tree and cut it up and turned it into this tree. Came out pretty good. It was a lot taller, but it got shorter as I made mistakes. But if it got to this level, and she thought, wow, that looks pretty nice. And you can go to the next slide. It has a lot of bug marks in it and some spalding in it. So it was actually a pretty cool little piece. So she looked at that and she said, wow, that's really nice. Wouldn't it be nice if it was swaying in the wind? And I'm like, swaying in the wind? I don't know if I can do that. So I did an offset. So I made one that was an offset tree to try to simulate that swaying in the wind. I'm not sure if there you can see it's pretty good. So that was swaying in the wind, my first offset. It was an interesting experience, but it turned out okay. My wife calls that her cat in a hat tree, because it looks like you would see on the cat in a hat and so on. So anyhow, so that was that one. So I was going to make Christmas ornaments for my grandchildren. If you want to go to the pictures. So I made a little car for my grandson. It's only about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches long, so it's really small. So I turned it round and didn't like it round, so I decided to make it turned oval by doing more offsets, since I'm an expert now of one time. So I did 3 offsets on this, one offset to round the sides and one to round the bottom off, so that it came out to be a little interesting. And if you go back to that first slide, it shows the offsets that I did. And for me, these are all tiny stuff. I used a skew for the first time, and it started out much larger than what it is, but it got to be this size on the end. And can you show the one with the holes in it? Yeah, that's the offsets. The center mark was the first, where I did the car and then did the windshield and everything. And then the 2 on each side was to make it oval, and the top one was to round the bottom off. So I wanted to make sure I didn't hit the windshield. So that was my second offset, and that offset was done on both the headstock and the tailstock, both sides, so that I can get a straight shot then. So if I can show you, go to the ones. These are for the center one's a fox. I did a little carving with that, very little. I'm not a carver, so I don't know if you ever saw the book, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. That's the pigeon. And then a little rabbit on the side, a little different style. And then go to the next one. I think there's another one. My one granddaughter loves rabbits, so I made another rabbit for her, and she picked that one out. The square is actually gaffer's tape. I didn't finish the nose, so a little creative on that. And I think that's the last one. It just shows, oh, I do have another one up there. And then I made a cat for my other granddaughter with ears made out of leather, just kind of folded a little bit. Oops. And then I made a bunch of other little things. Made a little, and I don't have the feet for it, so it won't stand well, but a sheep, a mouse, a goofy oriental, maybe, I don't know, snowman, and I made a puppy dog. That turned out pretty good with the little ears and stuff. They're all ornaments that I had made up. Those were the extra ones that I didn't give away. And I actually have a a bird that hasn't quite got its beak yet. So it's still not quite there yet. So I made all those, had fun doing it, learned a lot of mistakes, of course, being new to turning. And I also made one out of a bowl out of black walnut. It's kind of hard to see in the lighting here. But it actually came out pretty good. You can see the little shimmer there, and that's nice on the inside. The light's not real good here, but you can kind of see a little bit of what it's on the inside. That started out a really big piece of black walnut. It had tons of checks, so I kept turning till I got past all the checks. So it started out about that big. And it ended up that size, but I'm happy with it. I mean, I probably turn a foot on it if I had to do it over again, and I still may do that. But I tried to do a little different style on that for me. And I think this is my third bowl, so I'm still learning a lot. So most of the finishes are all mineral spirits or walnut oil. And typically if I put anything over top of that, I'll put beeswax on it. So that's my show and tell. Any questions? Thank you.
I don't think I brought this here last month, but I had gone down to Ellsworth's studio and turned some natural edge bowls, which I had not turned before. And for folks who have done it, most of you probably have, it's not that difficult, but it's weird, right? It's just a weird feeling. So I did bring a blank back from Ellsworth's place that I could not turn there because we just ran out of time. And I turned this one, which is better than the ones that I turned down at his place. I had a catch on the bottom, so the foot turned out to be really tiny, but I still, and then because it wasn't totally dry, it worked a little bit. So now it's a little rocker, but anyhow, so that was my first kind of successful natural edge.
You put enough M&Ms in there, the center grounding.
That'll help.
Make it a lot more stable.
I'll work
Right on the center.
right there.
A starburst on the bottom.
Peanut M&Ms would be my recommendation.
Taffy will do it too.
And I'll bring it to the next meeting.
That's a good idea, so we can see how it works.
All right, I'll let you know.
10-pound bag.
Nice, that's nice.
So I'm wearing a mask tonight, folks, because on the Thursday before Christmas, I tested positive on COVID. And this morning was the first time in a week and a half I tested negative. So I just thought I'd be on the safe side and make sure I don't distribute it to the rest of you. And this afternoon, for the first time in about 3 months, I decided to make another one of these bud vases. I sold one down at one of the shops downtown. I don't know if any of you, I know some of you have seen them before. I first saw them made by Jake Brubaker back whenever, and all they are is just a small hole in the end to do that. It's obviously a spindle turning, and it's finished with just carnauba wax and highly polished, and it looks really quite effective. And they're fun to make. And if you want to practice with a skew, this is the one where you use your hands as far as a steady rest. 2 tricks. One is me using your hands as a steady rest. The other part is that I mount it with I have a pin jaws on this end. So when you're actually mounting it, you mount it on jaws on one end and then bring the tailstock in just to push. And that way, if you try to do this between centers, the pressure causes this whole thing to start flopping in the middle. If, on the other hand, you use a pin jaw and just a steady rest, you get a whole lot more stable cut through this whole thing, and it's really, really easy to control that way. So that's pretty cool. I like doing them.
Doug,
Sorry.
Doug, how far did you drill in for the flower holder?
I guess about an inch.
Thank you.
Drill the hole first.
Yeah, drill the hole, then use a real fine center on the for turning on centers, and then obviously sand down. So this was done squared, and then the last thing is take it out and just sand the edge off on a bit of an angle.
You said use your hands as a steady rest, and some people may not know what you're talking about. You want to tell people what you mean?
Sure. Even though you're going at 4,000 or 3,000 RPM or something like this, when you're holding this tool, it's going round in a circle. Literally have my fingers around the piece while I'm turning, so that when you're bringing the chisel across, and people say, "Is it dangerous?" Well, you don't catch it. To be honest, it's no more dangerous than, you know, cutting with a paring knife or something like that, because literally you're not. It's going, even though the speed is 3,000 RPM, the surface speed is extremely slow. So the biggest risk is to actually cut through and break it more than anything. So just holding it this in a grip, and then using your thumb to bring the chisel across really works very nicely.
You work these from the top down so that you've got mass behind.
Yes.
Working.
So this is if it's holding here, I start at this end and then bring it down this way as you're doing. So finish this off as lightly as possible. I mean, I actually, on this one, I actually thinned it down a little bit after it was down the whole length, so you can do it, but it's still, you know. And the other part is that if you're not completely satisfied with the diameter, a little bit of rough sandpaper, and this, you know, there's almost no time at all, and it gets very, very thin very quickly. So you can do a lot, make it look quite nice and elegant.
So there's no tailstock involved at all? No
The tailstock was in there, but it's just barely touching. It's just enough to keep this thing to stable. So I had a very fine point tailstock in that whole drill.
This would be a good demo for people who don't do spindle turning that much.
Yeah,
Okay, well, we can do that sometime, or do it on a Saturday morning or something like that.
What's a good wood for doing that?
This is Purple Heart. What you really want to find out if you do anything is make sure you get a really good straight grain. And something, so maple, walnut, or something, but it's got to be a really straight grain on it, because if you get any off angle on that grain at all, it'll just shear off.
One more question. I just learned something. I'm turning pans about Purple Heart. Do you use a heat gun or any kind of heat treatment to bring out the color on it?
No, that's just purely carnauba wax.
Okay.
This is actually this Purple Heart. I got a bunch of Purple Heart from old park benches in Washington, and so this is actually 50-year-old Purple Heart that's been sitting around and really well aged. So it's not the typical Purple Heart you see. It's just the core of the 2x4s that I bought. Monthly challenge was to do something for the kitchen that is not a bowl or a plate, and so I did this a while ago, but the spurtles are definitely something I did. And then my wife has a whole bunch of sets of these things, so I made also a holder for spurtles and for spatulas and stuff like that. Very simple. Take a nice big Forstner bit, drill it out, and then sandpaper, you know, and then don't worry about it after that.
But for those of us who are kind of clueless, what's a spurtle?
A spurtle's a Scottish name for a stick for stirring your dough with. Okay. It's for literally a stir stick for cooking with. But yeah, you can make them any shape. Effectively, it's a straight stick for the kitchen. It doesn't have a spoon on the end.
Wrap your knuckles when you try to steal the cookies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I also said this is my last utensil for the kitchen for my wife to make grocery lists with. Well, you said something out of the.
So that's just a continuation of what you've seen before. In circles, this is a piece of holly. It still needs a little sanding to get rid of some of the color, but it was bleached a bunch of times, and I really, of all the shapes, it's interesting. People will come up to me and say, like, someone at another club I belong to loves the triangles. Like, I really like the triangles. That's okay, but I really like the triangles. And other people like the ovals. And this is one that just really, for me, I enjoy the way it looks. It's a lot more open than some of the others, but it's more stable than like the crazy quilt ones that I do that are really open, but intentionally trying to see how far I can push the material. Circles are cool, so I did circles. And then the point of all this is not to say like, look at all the ornaments I made, because I did, but I wanted to talk a little bit about progression. So this is one of the first ornaments I made at Philadelphia Woodworks in Manayunk. So I joined Philadelphia Woodworks in Manayunk in, let's say 2018, with the idea of becoming a cabinet maker. I wanted to make tables and do some other things. I bought this beautiful slab of walnut from Groff and Groff that was cheap because it was like a short thing, and it was a triangle. And I thought, well, if I cut the triangle at the halfway point and I flip one end over, it'll be a rectangular table, and that'll look really cool. And all I have to do is work out the crack in the middle, which I did. And it's a beautiful table, and it sits in my basement where it doesn't have any legs and it's not been connected together, but it's gorgeous. And the reason it sits in my basement and it doesn't have any legs yet is because I took one turning class at, I don't know if you guys know, Philadelphia Woodworks is a sort of, it's like a sculpture gym. It's like a huge shop that has all the equipment you could ever want. You join and you take a class on learning how to use all the equipment without cutting your fingers off, and then you can just go open. It's open all the time. I mean, it's almost 24 hours, and you can buy a monthly membership or a year-long membership or whatever, and you can do it by the hour or whatever. So it's a cool place to learn a lot of things, and they teach a lot of classes in order to get people interested. And I took this turning class and turned this bowl thing that someday I'll bring in because it's sort of funny. And then I was like, oh, well, I could turn ornaments, right? That's a thing that you could turn. And so I started turning ornaments. And so I'm in there, at the little tiny lathe, like turning ornaments for weeks at a time. And then I just gave up on cabinet making because that was going to be way too much time and detail. So this is I think this is like the third ornament I ever made. It's not hollowed out. It's a cool piece of African blackwood, and it had a little stripe in it. And I thought, oh, that might be interesting. So that was one. And then, I've made the things like the project-based things like the gnome. And then this was one that was like I brought this in because this was sort of the midway step to where I am now. So stupid thin, right? And what I learned from this is you can make a stupid thin ornament, and then you just have to expect that it's going to chip off every year. There's going to be another chip out of it. So this was a beautiful ornament that I thought it was really beautiful and very delicate and very fine and everything. And not realizing, as I do every time I pack up ornaments, not everyone is as careful as I am in the family. And it started to get chipped. So it was like a lesson learned. I took all this time to make this very thin, like disc. And, it lasted about a year on the tree. It still goes on the tree because there's something sad about an ornament that doesn't go back on the tree. And then I started getting more refined in my finials and doing more experimental stuff. And then really thinking about proportion and the fit between the bulb and the finials, trying to make it a continuation of shape. This is that smoke wood. Where are you? Oh, he's not here tonight. I thought when you said what's a spurtle, that Doug, you were going to go this, right? Because I love that. So this one's hollowed out. It's super light. I did do a really thin disc here, but it's protected by the bulb, so I'm not worried about it chipping. But just sort of a progression. And then you get to a point where you go like, well, I'm going to do something no one's ever done, because every bulb ornament's a bulb ornament. So then I design this thing, and people love this thing. It can like I can make them hang this way, or I can make them hang this way, and I give these away as gifts all the time. I think it's a sort of fun and unique thing. We have a turner in Keystone who does a lot of triple dyeing and stabilizing using cactus juice. So every year I get his cast offs. They're not necessarily the prettiest thing, but this is actually pretty cool. He does these vibrant things that are like tie-dyes, which I can appreciate, but they cost a lot of money. So every year at the auction, he puts his cast offs in our wood auction, and I buy a bunch of them and then turn them down to this thing, and people really like that. And then I decided this year that I would use some of the other things that so you can see I'm a brown and rounder, right? They're round, they're brown. That's the way I started. I liked figuring out different woods that work together. And then this year I've been doing a lot of work with color and different things. You know, you saw the demo of the mica powder gilder's paste. And I was like, well, I should use some of that in my ornaments. So this is just a piece of spalted, I don't know what. It was waxed, so I must have gotten it from Groff and Groff way back in the way back. And I have tons of wood from Groff and Groff, like exotics from South America and Africa and all this stuff. And I never use them because I always think that I'm just going to waste this on something that's not going to be that special, right? So I collect wood that's expensive, and people buy me wood. They go there all the time and buy me, you know, $50 piece of wood, and it just sits in the shop. So I'm like, I'm not good enough to use that piece of wood yet. So this year I finally broke this thing out, and I made 7 of these bulbs, and I dyed them all and, you know, made ornaments out of them. And then this one, I took some gold mica powder, and now I love this. I didn't show you this when I was here doing that demo, but it's a fun thing. I just sprinkle a little bit of on a piece of paper, and I hold the piece of paper up to the ornament, and I have one of these little bulbs that squeezes air for like when you clean a lens on a camera. So this is weird. I bought some stuff from Amazon that was like, I can't even remember what it was. It might've been mica powder. And they sent me a kit for cleaning lenses on your camera. And I was like, how did that, like, if you're gonna give me a freebie, what was the, you know, but the bulb, I was like, well, I can use that bulb. So I just sprinkle a little bit, and I go poof, poof. While the ornament's spinning on the lathe, I've used, you know, the sizing like you would for gold leaf, and just poof that stuff all over. Now the great thing is the rest of my shop now is all glitterized. The lathe is totally glitterized, and there's no getting it off. You can blow it, but there's so much static right in the winter when it's dry that it's like powder coating something. So that was this one, which I like. I'm going to give that one away. And then this is one I made for my wife. It's a little bell, and it's red, dyed with red, and then green color shifting gilder's paste, and then I dyed the top of it green, and then I put in a little knocker, whatever those things are called. I don't know the parts of a bell. Clapper, and then I used the color shifting green mica powder to sort of give that a little zhuzh, as Carol would say. And so I think this is one of my favorites that I've done. But it's not because I wanted to talk about 8 ornaments. It's because I want new people to think about, like, doing something one time is not like that productive. This is a progression over 5 years of moving in lots of different directions and trying to do your own design things and having the, you know, taking the risks and making things stupid thin and then seeing how they break, or learning something else from someone else and then adding it to your repertoire of, like, how can I decorate, or how can I make something? And eventually you get to some cool stuff that, you know, if no one else does, you appreciate. And then I made this tree, this little stupid ornament hanger. You know, people have these fancy ornament hangers. You ever go to shows? They have all these nice ornament hangers. And I'm the kind of person, like, 5 minutes before I'm supposed to show something, I go like, oh, what am I going to show that with? I have 8 ornaments to hang. So I had some copper wire, and I was just like, and if you come up, it'll rock, because I literally just didn't drill a pilot hole. I just drilled through the oak, and it split in half as I was drilling it. And I like super glued it back together, and it's all wobbly, but so I didn't have space for this one, but I like this one is sort of fun to me. So anyway, that's, oh yeah, sure.
What is the sphere?
It's probably Paduc or Paduac, if you want to pronounce it like the natives. Sorry? Oh yeah. Yeah. This one's not hollow because it's not a sphere. No, it's just not hollow. No, I think I did actually hollow that one. I made an ornament once. Some of you may know Joe Seltzer. He's a collector, and he everything in his collection is under 7 inches big, and he makes these tiny little things. He makes these like Turner for dollhouses is what I call him, because he turns these tiny little things. So I made an ornament one year. The whole ornament fits inside a dime. I like to sit it on a dime, and it sits inside a dime, and it's got all of this decoration. It's not just like a bicycle coming down. It's all fine work that I did with, you know, double magnifying glasses and a little tiny little tool. And I gave it to him. I shouldn't have, because I'll never make another one, because it took me so long to make this without failing. But even that one was hollowed out, and I had to like take the tiniest little hex wrench and grind it down and sort of, but the ball is like, you know, Campfire Girls beads. They're tiny, it's a tiny little thing, but it's hollow. So because people don't think you're valid if you don't hollow your ornaments. Also, you can only have that one kind of tree, the blue spruce, which is so pickery and awful, but it's a great, if you have a lot of wooden ornaments, blue spruce is your tree, because it's really, the branches don't flex, so you can have heavy ornaments. So anyway, that's me.
I want to follow Tom here because I need to say thank you, Tom. About 2 months ago, I was here and I brought along this as well as a rough turning here, but I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. So as opposed to a show and tell, that was my night for show and ask. And Tom stepped up. He was here 2 weeks for the Saturday, and using this little, carving bit, I think you call it.
The bell-shaped carbide.
Bell-shaped carbide carving bit. And so I ended up actually making 3 of these things. I discovered I needed them. For those who don't know, by way of background, I volunteer once a week at Reuse It up in Ephrata, and we had a bed come in. And the bed was missing 3 pineapple finials, as well as 7 rosettes. And so that's part of what I've been doing the last month and a half or so. And I'm hoping to have the project finished this week, if not maybe next. But yeah, I've been trying to match up the colors on the rosettes, and that's not a real close color match, but I'm getting there. And so that's the project that I've been working on. The other thing I would add, again, thank you, Tom. We were sitting here working on this thing that Saturday, and Tom had this pair of magnifying glass, flip-up magnet. And I was thinking, wow, that's a pretty neat idea. I was at the goods store up in Ephrata, a pair of reading glasses for $2. So 2-power magnifying, and it makes a world of difference, not just for the fine stuff here, but also for my reading. So that's my tip for the night. Thank you all.
So for the kitchen item challenge, I have 2 variations on mason jar lids. Both are gift ideas. You may have seen these before. The first is just a simple lid that slips over top. And then I did a honey dipper to go along with it. And the top of the lid has a spot for the honey to be dipped out and to hold the dipper. I have a coworker who has their own beehives. Her father has her own beehives, so I got honey from her and then made the jar lids for as Christmas gifts. And that's cherry and Paduke. And then the other, I took the basic mason jar ring and I inset it inside some walnut that I had turned. And then the jar lid itself is a piece of bird's eye maple that I've turned the disc and then glued it to the top of the lid. So you get a decorative lid for a mason jar.
Do the M&Ms taste different in the fancy lid? Should I try?
I'll let you check.
Yeah, I'd like to check to see if they taste different with the fancy lid.
Maple flavored.
One of the things I found when I was doing the mason jar lids, it's important to use a jar that has a shoulder, because if you use a straight jar, it just looks kind of awkward to have this gawky large lid on top of it. But you have to turn them really fairly thin. It's only about an eighth of an inch thick, if that.
How did you inlay that?
I'm sorry?
How did you inlay the metal piece?
Silicone glue.
Okay.
Yep, just glued it inside. And then all those have my food safe wax finishes. So, that's what I did for my kitchen items.
Like Thomas was saying about doing something new and trying something different. I have a friend of mine that I'm doing a commission piece for, and it's a mid-century modern design. That's what he's into. 1950s, 60s design stuff.
Up to the 70s. Don't leave the 70s out.
Right. Well, So I was looking over the art from that time period, and it was kind of all over the place, but kind of boring in some aspects. But a lot of the art, like the wall art, there was a lot of geometrics and stuff like that. So I decided that, I wanted to do this flex wood, but I wanted to put some cool design in the center. I'm doing a starburst, which I'll show you the pictures in a minute. But for the center of it, I decided I needed to have something that was kind of cool looking. So I picked up another little hobby of acrylic paint pouring and started playing with a whole lot of different techniques to try to figure out how to get what I wanted with that tie-dye look scenario. So I made up a whole lot of little play things, kept me busy for a couple hours, a couple days, and it's neat just using the paints, because these are all using the same paint. These are exactly the same paints, just different techniques of applying them. And same thing there. And then I finally decided that this was the basic design that I wanted to use for the centerpiece, but not quite, because I changed techniques a little bit on it. And I see a question coming. No?
It looks a lot like the Italian paper technique too. I wondered if you ran any combs through it or did any of that kind of stuff.
I used the skewer.
I saw you use the hair dryer. I like the hair dryer.
No, I didn't use the hair
Not
dryer.
on this one, but on the other ones, right?
Actually, those were just swipes.
The bubbles were swipes?
These were swipes. I didn't use the hair dryer. I just got my hair dryer today in the mail.
Oh.
Because I don't need one very much either.
Yeah, I know. I saw the other thing you changed was your haircut.
Yes, I did that. John, you want to put the picture up? So this is the design that I ended up with in the pour, using the turquoise and orange and ochre.
So you did that with a toothpick? Or did you do this?
Yeah, with a skewer. With a skewer. It's actually a 2-cup ring pour, multiple ring pour, and then use the skewer to get the feathering design. And I did use silicone in this, which the picture doesn't show it real well, but there is some really nice, smaller cell development in it, which gives it that neat look. So
what's it going to be the centerpiece of? The center of?
Next picture.
Ah, nice.
The old starburst effect. I wanted to bring it tonight, but the paint was still wet. So it still needs to dry before I can handle it. But all of the little spindly guys, just doing that atomic starburst pattern that was very common.
And that the tenons not being inserted all the way is also very mid-century. Are you going to keep it that way, or are those just not assembled yet?
It's not assembled. It's just laying on the side right now.
Because that space that you create with the longer tenons also has a very mid-century look to it.
Yeah, I didn't get that far.
Yeah, it's very cool.
In the assembly.
Really cool piece.
And in the center of the disc, I'm thinking about doing a catalpa disc to get just a yellow pure wood, because along the sides of it, once it comes over the face, it'll be pure wood with no paint on the sides once I clean it up, because I want to incorporate the natural wood. And I'm thinking about using the catalpa to put a small inlaid disc in the center of it so that it'll tie throughout the entire piece between the natural woods. And with the catalpa I got a piece from a guy a couple weeks ago, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful yellow color wood.
Yellow?
It's yellowy, not yellow, but yeah,
it will be very quickly, it'll be brown.
Brown again.
Not
don't know if you
good.
know that, but it won't stay yellow.
I have the wrong wood in my brain. But catalpa is what's
Are you
coming to
thinking
mind.
Osage?
No,
Osage, it's all gonna turn brown.
it's, yeah, well, with this, I want to play with it and see before I actually do the inlay.
How thick is the shield part?
It's about an 1.25 inches.
So those maple rays,
Mhm.
are they square on two sides and then rounded in the, is that what I saw?
It's flat,
Yeah.
so here,
Yeah. Did you sand that flat or was the piece?
No, I
or
did
was
it on the lathe.
Style, okay.
and I actually, got brave enough to pick the skew up and play with the skew. So all of the turning on these was all done with the skew. So from here out to here, it's flat on the top and bottom, and then slightly rounded. Now, the very corners, that was a little bit of sandpaper to finish off the rounding on that. But yeah.
What's the diameter of the painted piece?
That big.
Okay, and what
20
big
inches.
disc are you aiming on putting in the center?
Probably about an inch. I look at the right proportion.
Because I have a number of stabilized pieces, discs, flat scraps in various colors. If you're looking for yellow and that color range, I could probably give you something.
You could also do something like take a piece of maple and dye it yellow.
Yeah.
So that it, like if you could find a nice maple burl, you could dye it yellow so it would stay yellow. If you really want it to stay a color, you're probably better off picking a light wood and then dyeing it than you are hoping for a nice lovely piece of organic wood that will then eventually turn brown.
Right. There's some burl scraps in the box there that you can take and try it.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you thought about the number of points on your star? Oftentimes people use 6 or 8, and I've heard that an uneven number like 9 is actually artistically more attractive.
Right. Well, odd numbers are much more appealing to the eye,
Yeah.
but they don't do well on the indexing that I have on my little tiny lathe.
That's a built on a compass example.
Yeah.
So you want an even number for sure.
So,
You sure? Yeah, because it's a compass. It's the sextant compass. That's where that came from.
Your compass rose. Your eye is trained to go in quadrants. That's the only thing that works.
Very cool. I love the fact that you did all those play plates to to get to one thing. Awesome.
and actually, I had to paint the disc twice because the first one I didn't quite like.
But no one will know until 200 years from now. A museum does the little sign. The picture of your girlfriend at the very bottom. Yeah.
Exactly.
If people haven't done pour painting, boy, you can lose a lot of hours looking at pour painting tutorials online, right?
Oh,
you can do so
absolutely.
much with it. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Didn't they have those things at carnivals where you pour the paint in?
Yeah, we used to have them as a kid. Where you,
Yeah, that's similar,
spin
right?
art, yeah.
And then there's all the grain decoration technique like that.
Cool.
Anybody else?
Okay, fine, sure.
Carl's got something, and Barry's got something. Okay.
You up, Barry?
So, for the challenge, these are not bowls or plates. These are covers to cover stains on your counter. There, I qualified. So, spalted maple, I just grabbed these out of the shop I was working on, and one has finished, one doesn't. Flat, you can see. Well, sorry. Yeah, I had that way.
There you go.
Silver maple ambrosiaed. So it's fairly flat, but it has a slight wobble because the bottom, although concave on purpose, it's always, I never leave them flat. It's got slight warpage. Same tree, same wood, silver maple, slight warpage, unless that's this stand. No, that's probably not that stand. This was flat a day or two ago. What is that? Yeah. But I wanted to just show the difference you can do which one's more appealing? That's more appealing than this.
Depends on the eye of the holder. Depends on what you like, right?
Right. This doesn't have any finish on it. This has some Howard's bead wax. So this is a simpler planer. This gives a little bead and foot on the bottom with a little detail some people like. This edge on top, I have always got nothing but good reviews on this, and anybody who does it seems to get the same. It's nice when you hold it.
Yeah.
These are fairly decent if you have a nice depth to them. This one's a little wide, but I just wanted to, I left this lip this wide so you could see some of the detail. So I had one more to bring, but it's not quite ready for prime time. It's the same wood in a crotch feather. I'm really looking forward to seeing that finish on it. It's an amazing piece of wood. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
How did you make the lip?
Sorry?
How did you make the lip?
I punched it and it got fat. I got a pretty mean right hook. These get chucked and with a live center up against them for a while, and then to get rid of, I work without that. And this just turned, these are just, all of these are done with a bowl gouge, simple one, these are 1/2-inch bowl gouge, that's all you use on any of this stuff. And you turn this off, it's real simple.
I'm talking about how you get the lip of the other one as flat. I appreciate.
Same thing.
Okay.
So it's spinning this orientation. You come at it this way, so you're cutting in towards the center across here. That's it. And that's, if flat is relative, it's whatever you want, wherever you are, in orientation of the axis. So that, I mean, I could make it more like this, whatever. But that's just, it's appealing. When you try it, if you just try doing that, you'll see where it takes you. Yeah.
Is that green wood or dry? Or?
This is all green. Well, fairly green. At any time that you're going to get wood that's been ambrosia that's already
laying down.
No, but it's probably stressed, so it's already in a drying process. But these were still green, and that's the other reason for making a foot like that. It doesn't wobble quite as much, and you can quickly stand off the high point, and no one's going to notice it. Anyway, thank you.
I'm new to turning, Chaz. I've been getting a rash from John for everyone showing stuff. I got into it to do pen turning, bought a lathe to do pen turning. But my real passion is, like you guys, is actually turning. This is my very first chalice with using a Forstner bit. This is a tree branch off of my maple damaged tree that I turned green and found out about CA glue. It's sealed this baby up from cracks, so it's solid. It's almost like plastic. But that was my first turning, doing any kind of wood turning. The other thing, the next thing I had gotten into, got into pen turning. Full assortment of pens. Really got into that on the acrylic pens. The one thing I wanted to. I started off with this one pen that I bought like about a month ago or so ago. I got into it about October. This was a Purple Heart pen. Really ugly. It's got CA glue on it. It's brown. Okay, it's Purple Heart. I just turned on this past weekend the updated version of that. Totally, extremely different. This is actually purple. The way it's supposed to be. Used not a heat gun, but I used a hair dryer on it. I was doing some research on the internet and stuff, and everybody's saying you had to use a heat gun. Well, another guy said just put it out in the sun, you'll be fine. I got my wife's hair dryer out and put some heat on it, and it turned out about 100 times better than my first one. So I got the before and the after pen. So the other thing about this pen, I did wet sanding for the first time. And it's got a shine on it like none of the pens I've ever done with the wet sanding, the CA glue and the wet sanding, and then obviously a ton of polish on it. But did a bunch of 50 caliber pens with acrylic. And all all these are all pretty much sold or given away as gifts. I told everybody they couldn't have their pens because I wanted to bring them today. Plus, this is basically, I don't know if you've seen the 50 caliber pens or not done, but this is acrylic 50 caliber pen with the camouflage on.
You just hold it up.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So you can fit it in the screen. There you go.
Yeah, so this is a 50 caliber pen. So they're pretty cool.
Is the cartridge an actual?
This is an actual spent round. It's a kit. You got, I think I got Penn State Industries. It's a 50 caliber round, spent round. I actually had to polish the shell as well because it came with a lot of residue on it, and I had to clean it several times, polish it several times because all my cleaning rags and everything got really dark from all the residue on it and stuff. But I had to polish those up as well. Yeah, that's really fun. But then I got into the last thing I got into. I got a whole. It's kind of interesting with the pens. I kind of carried away with the pens, experimenting with a ton of different woods, but got to the point where I actually did a photo shoot on everything to possibly down the road to full view. Obviously, these are not, but just basically a whole different selection of pens that I've done.
We'll just hold them up for the camera.
Yeah, sorry. How far out this goes. But yeah, all different woods.
Just hold them still.
Yeah.
Not all zoom.
Okay. All different woods. A couple special ones in here. Last month I was in, Tom helped me out with cutting down some wood. This pen here is a cherry from a corner piece of rounded. Somebody needed to make a circle blank, and I got the corner of it, and this is the cherry from that corner that he had cut off. So I laid it into a pen. That actually is going to go to him for sharing his wood. And then another one, a new member. I had gotten some wood from him. This is a really cool one. This is, I guess it's ironwood, American ironwood. I'm not sure, but I know there's desert ironwood, which I just bought some blanks of desert ironwood. But it's a really cool pen. Once again, this was also wet sanded, CA glue wet sanding. It's a really cool pen. But I got a whole variety of pens. And then this past holiday weekend, finally got to what I get into originally. I bought 2 pieces of mahogany from the same guy I got the ironwood, and did 2 small bowls out of one very old mahogany blank wood. It was I was in cutting it. This is what I cut that Saturday. I was in cut them down and circled the blanks, but both mahogany. So I learned a lot. And enjoyed it a lot. All carved with carbide blades. I got a good set of carbide blade tools, only because being a beginner, I had no room for the sharpening, and down the road, I'd like to get into the traditional carving tools. But I like the whole wide lip. Put the wide lip with the concave inside. Yeah, it turned out really well. The main thing I ran into was tear out with the carbide blades. So I had to do a lot of work with tear out. Learned a lot on how to shear cut and scrape with a carbide blade. Right there we go. That was interesting. Learning all that. So. The other 2 things, there's 2 different heights on this. The exact same thickness of wood. What I did was I did a tenon on this one, which I carved off, and then I did a reverse dovetail on the bottom of this one. And this is a lot higher, so I was able to use all the wood, the height of the wood, by using the reverse tenon on that. So that was kind of that's what I was trying to do, is trying to use up all the wood with it. But yeah, that's it. Thanks.
So for the challenge thingy, about 6 months ago, my younger daughter asked me to make, I don't know, is this the mortar or the pestle? I don't know. One of these things to grind stuff, spices. So I made her one, gave it to her. Then my wife wanted one, so I made this from spalted ash. And this gets used in the kitchen. It's getting a little grungy, but it was pretty easy to make. Skew work. And then for the challenge, I still had some of that ash left, a little piece. I made a honey dipper a couple days ago. And then my latest bowl is this little guy. One of these days, I will make a big bowl. I have a 14-inch lathe, but as somebody else said earlier, you start with a chunk this big, and by the time you get rid of all the cracks and everything else,
Can
anyway.
you put that on the turntable so we can see it shape?
But every bowl that I make, I learn a little bit more, and I have some goal in my head, like either improve the foot or the balance of the shape or feature the wood or whatever. So I learn a lot. It's nice to see a lot of newer turners showing their stuff too. This will be beginning my 3rd year turning.
Right. What is the bowl?
Oh yeah, I had salvaged some maple down at our salvage dump behind the airport. I go down there and dump some of my pickup, and sometimes I see logs laying there, and I just take them home and cut them up. So I think it's a piece of maple. Nice to work with.
It's a spoon holder, piece of black walnut. It was a board that was, this was the center, obviously, and it was a 4-inch wide board about that long that I just newspaper glued to plywood faceplate and turn the back side, turn the front side, and then I have a little pedestal that mounts a laminate turner at spindle height. I ran the groove down there, ever bigger cutters until I got up to about a 1/2 inch, and then exhaustively sanded it up to close to 1 inch, I guess.
You didn't cut the spoon out of there, did you?
I'm sorry?
I mean, you didn't hollow the spoon out and keep the spoon part of it? No, I'm just kidding.
I thought that was something to use at a frat party to do shots or something.
I guess I am both blessed and cursed with severe hearing loss. And my trek is pretty pedestrian, but it turns out that I think this is like 3/4 inch, but I'm not sure, PVC, and it happens to have a sliding loose fit naturally that slides on the tool rest. And so the lowest I ever want to use my tool, I'm sure we'll have people argue with this, but is 1/2 inch below the spindle center for thicker scrapers and some other things. So by sliding this on and just leaving it on, I have pretty much all robust tool rests, and they all have the same distance from the weld to the top of the where the tool glides. And so a single height works universally, but they're pretty cheap to make, one for each one. So it positions the tool there, and I find it much easier to judge raising it up. It slides up with the rest. I can judge moving it 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch much easier than if I'm looking at 3 inches of stem. But just because it's me, I also made a series of made an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, and a 1/2 inch, or 3/8 too. Spacer took a wonder at, and they just, if you want to raise it up to where you're at spindle height, I seldom run it above center even for roughing gouge. But if I just put this, slide this in under it, it does snap in there because it's been cut to slightly less than the diameter. It locks you in right there at spindle height. There's just a screw that I've threaded into the plastic.
Tapped.
So it's kind of tinker toyish, but it works very well.
Barry, what sort of cabinet do you have to put those in so you can keep track of them? Because no lathe has a clean.
Yeah, I made a box for on top of I have a jet lathe, and so it has a square top on it. So I made a box on that, and along with a 2-inch dividers and a little compass and things. If a magnet ever gets near it, I'm going to have like 30 things hanging from the magnet.
Yep.